Hello, Coolman69 here with a review for Rush Hour, the TV series, episode 5. Last week I said that the promo for the the sneak peek at next week, which is this week, says that, shows that Lee's sister is going to come back, and boy does she. Not only does Lee's sister come back, this entire episode is plot relevant. And from the looks of it, it's setting up what's going to be the plot for, I'm guessing, season 1. Thank goodness! Oh my gosh, I'm so excited. I mean, the pilot had a plot and completely finished it out. Like, literally completely wrapped everything up. Save for Lee's sister. But we have finally gotten plot. They're doing stuff with, triads and, the Chinese gangs coming to America and stuff. And I'm totally game for that. This is kind of stuff we had seen in, the pilot, but they didn't really develop that. And after 3 episodes that were entirely episodic, much improved episodes, but they were still episodic, we finally get a good plot-relevant episode. And this looks to be what's going to be the basis for the season or whatever arc. I honestly don't know how many episodes this show is getting. If it's getting, a 13 episode half season or a 20-something full season. But regardless, the current plot line that's going on right now is involving the Chinese mafia, triads and the Chinese gangs opening up stuff in America. And it's sort of like they're... And this is, of course, stuff that Lee had dealt with. I believe they were involved in stuff from, the pilot. I'm not too sure. I kind of don't really remember much of the pilot because it was literally just copying the first movie. But, yeah. While it is plot relevant, it actually does deal with a number of character stuff, and this is something that I actually really liked. While we had seen Lee and his sister in the pilot, we haven't really gotten anything since then. But, I thought it was a little weird. We finally get that. We even get a flashback for Lee of when he and his sister were younger. Awesome. When we actually show Lee with his sister in this, it's like, alright, great. I said before that I actually really like the idea of Lee having a sister. Lee in the movies had a brother, adopted brother, in Rush Hour 3, who was the main bad guy. And he served... And he would go on about how Lee had no, family, and he was the only family he had, yada, 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 I'm the bad guy. And, I'm actually glad that they're doing this, because one, this opens up, plot opportunities to do numerous things with Lee. It also gives us opportunity for a subplot, and it also takes Lee in a different direction. This Lee does have family. In fact, family is... The lesson of... The theme of family from last week continues into this. A little less. It's obviously not the main focus, obviously. But it's still prevalent in this, and Lee does talk about that, having found a family that he is, he's living in Dee Dee's house now, instead of in his rinky-dink apartment he got kicked out of. He has people around him that care for him. And I'm now finally able to buy Lee and Carter having that bond. Lee had some information from Carter, and Carter was upset. Like, man, okay, you don't tell everyone else, don't make it public, but why don't you tell me? After what they've been through, a few episodes, they've gained trust. They're like brothers now. And I can buy them having that bond now. Because when they tried to pull that off in the pilot after they knew each other for less than a day, it felt a little forced. At this point, we've had those moments. We've had them working together. And we've had them helping each other out and learning from each other. They're starting to do that. So that bond is already being written. And despite this episode being very plot-heavy, it actually does have a lot of character-driven stuff. Mainly revolving around Lee and his sister. And I have to say, this might be my favorite episode. If only for the fact that it's jump-starting the plot. It's like, it's obviously the previews are going to be, It's, from the looks of it, it's going to take the typical approach of having episodic stories and then sprinkling plot between episodes that are plot heavy. And I'm glad, I'm glad we're finally getting to this, because the pilot failed to do that. And I mean, if the pilot had, the pilot had set up a concrete story, I wouldn't harp on this as much, and I wouldn't be glad as much as I am that we're finally getting a plot-heavy episode. 3 full episodes that have nothing to do with any plot. I mean, I think it's necessary, simply because you need to build up the relationship between the characters. And I'm actually glad. And I'm surprised, I'd mentioned before that there's the douche detective guy, and he actually does stuff. He's still kind of comic relief and kind of a jerk, but he's actually involved in the episode, and I'm actually kind of glad. I really hope his character develops, because just being a douchebag gets really boring really quick. So he's shown capacity, and he's actually got some great sarcastic lines. Like he's a douche, but he's actually kind of funny, and I really hope they continue him being just an absolute snarker. Because everyone has there's a lot of sarcasm in this show, and I actually really enjoy it. The comedy's actually, it's more of the same. If you've been watching the show and you like the comedy so far, it's more of the same. A few race jokes, but I actually kind of think it's not bad jokes. They're still making a few jokes based, race jokes. But hey, you know what? As long as the jokes are funny, I'm cool with it. The douche McDouchington did make a joke about how he's surrounded by a bunch of Asian guys, and they're just saying blend in, and then he's just making a sarcastic comment that basically Lee's the only one who can blend in. He's like a 6'3", scrawny white dude. They have a Hispanic chick and then a black guy. He's like, how are we supposed to blend in? We're surrounded by Asian guys. Oh, I'm funny. I'm laughing in this show. I laughed in this episode, which is a good sign in an action comedy. We continue, Lee's sarcasm. I'll get to a little bit in the action, but Carter, there's this fight scene, and Carter, he kind of goes woo in the fight scene while Lee's getting into the thick of it, fighting a whole bunch of guys, and he runs off chasing this other guy, but you can see he's just he bugs out of that the whole 30-man fight, and he's just it's actually really funny, because I think I said before that they didn't play up the incompetence as much, because Carter in the movies had moments of just stupidity and incompetence, and the last episode and this episode are actually doing good by that he does have good moments, but sometimes he's an idiot, and it's funny to watch him be an idiot, and it fits more with wow, Chris Tucker. Wow, how can I forget that? Chris Tucker's portrayal of Carter, and it's kind of funny. I enjoyed it. Now, as far as the action's concerned, probably some of my favorite action scenes in the shows thus far. But you probably know what I'm going to be saying by now if you've watched my other reviews. They messed it up with slow motion. And I was hoping that these the fights were going on. It was okay, good. Slow motion. Guys, don't overdo the slow motion. Honestly, no slow motion. Stop using slow motion. If you remove the slow motion, these fight scenes would all be amazing. And for the first time, really, we've seen unorthodox tactics before with Lee and how he fights, but this is the first time I think we've really gotten that Jackie Chan style, that almost desperation, that wacky desperation that Jackie Chan I don't even know how to describe it. It's just a Jackie Chan fight. It's just the it's like you can see he's super competent fighter, but he does some goofy stuff. Like there's a part where they actually have a fight at a spa, and if you've seen Rush Hour 2, you know where this is going. When I saw that, they first mentioned, okay, these triad guys that are a spa, and I'm just like, I know where this is going. I've seen Rush Hour 2. I know where this is going. It's not exactly the same, thank goodness. And I actually must commend them. They managed to totally... They basically took an idea from Rush Hour 2, the fight at the spa, and it wasn't just a spa, but that same kind of thing. A bunch of guys are in towels and stuff, and I congratulate them for not copying off of the movie. They actually made this its own thing, and it honestly, I would consider them separate enough so that I wouldn't consider this one a copy, and I enjoy that. Like, there's this one part where Lee is he's fighting like 10 guys, and he jumps on this railing, and he's like spinning around and like kicking people on the railing. And then one part where he ends up leaning against, I don't know, it's like a slope, like stairs. He's dodging a guy's like attack, like a guy's punching him. He falls back on it. He's getting up and he falls back on it again because the guy was going to attack him. And I'm like, okay, this is the kind of stuff that's, Jackie Chan style. And I'm really liking it. But they're messing it up with slow motion. And that's really annoying me. Like, guys, you guys have got good choreography. Jon Foo is, doing well with... He's doing well with the fight scenes. They're good and enjoyable, but it's the slow motion. The problem with slow motion is that if you have a fast fight scene, it's like you drag down the pacing of the fight by constantly doing slow motion. Because slow motion is used to draw emphasis to a certain action. If, you're making a jump, if there's an explosion behind you making a jump, a character's making a jump and there's a big explosion, it's slow motion, as then they grab onto the helicopter as it flies off, or you land the knockout hit in slow motion. It does have its place. But in a show like this, and the type of action they're doing, slow motion does not work. All it's doing is bogging down the fight scenes and making them look worse than they are. Because, this is something that, actually, I was part of a film project in high school, and the guy who's, directing it, and who's basically behind the whole thing, I'm still a little bitter about that because I did choreography for fights, but then he tossed it all out the window because I know what I'm doing. I know better than everyone. But anyway, there was a fight that was really lame, and he did slow motion in it. It made it look 10 times worse. And wrongly used slow motion messes up fights, and I don't know how many times I can stress this. And it just upsets me that they keep doing this. You have good fight scenes ruined. Not ruined, but they definitely don't look as good as they can if you do slow motion, because you're just drawing out flaws. It's like, it looks awkward when every other hit is in slow motion. It's like constantly drawing attention to the small details, and unless you have this super choreographed and you're dealing with a master. If you're dealing with someone like Jet Li or Jackie Chan or someone, sure, you can slow motion and they can look good as long as it's properly, choreographed and filmed. But this isn't at that level, and if you're not at that level, don't do something that's going to draw out your flaws. But really, other than that, I love these fight scenes. I enjoyed them. There was a fight that ended up on top of the chain link cage of of a baseball field. And it's just like, how did the fight end up on there? It's like, and I like this. And I like the fights. And this episode had some great fight scenes. It's just, why the slow motion? As far as the actors are going, I am liking this. I mean, really, nothing new to say. Justin Hires is doing good as Carter. I think maybe it's because they've been working on this, and I said before that they've been settling into their roles. But I'm really buying the brotherly relationship between Lee and Carter. They're clicking. They click, and the way they talk to each other, the way Carter's concerned, and honestly, I do like that. Lee in this is, he's a doof. He's kind of a selfish idiot. But he still cares about him. And, he goes up and asks someone, how are you feeling? And they don't answer. And he's like, no. Are you okay? And it's like, yeah, Carter can be a dick sometimes. But he's still a genuinely good guy. That's why he's on the police force. He wants to help people. I think Jon Foo... I think this might be directing issues. But Jon Foo's... I mean, he had some emotional lines that I don't know if maybe he's just not emoting properly. Some of the lines felt like they should have been more dramatic and emotional than they ended up being. But really minor quips on that, because I think Jon Foo is still emoting. It's not like he's just like, I am Kung Fu Bot 3000. Emotions do not comprehend. I mean, and honestly, since I'm not there, I can't tell if this is a directorial issue or if this is just, Jon Foo had some bad takes. But, and really, that's all that I can really complain about, is that I kind of felt like he should have, I don't know, maybe he should have, like, in times when, he's talking about his sister, it's like, maybe he should have had that more desperation and that more like emotional hurt. And I mean, he could also be trying to hide it in some points, which makes sense given the character. But again, that's just speculation. He still did a good job with those scenes and dealing with his sister. And I want to see his sister more. I mean, we're starting to get in the plots, and we're starting to slowly unravel, her role, because we hadn't known really anything of what she was doing or why she was doing what she did, and we're starting to get we actually see her a little bit more, and we're starting to see more. The layers of this onion are being peeled. I'm sorry, I referenced Shrek there. That's probably... But anyway, yeah. This episode it's a solid episode. It's the first plot episode, and it's light years ahead of the pilot. I don't know what was that pilot was about, but like, this is setting up a plot. And I also have to say, James Hong is actually in this, and he's like this mafia boss. It's actually kind of funny because I've seen him in comedic roles, so it was almost a little hard to take him seriously as this super serious and like crazy like mafia boss. But anyway, he still does a good job, and I'm shocked because you get so used to thinking of an actor in a comedic role that seeing them in a serious role, it kind of takes you aback. It's like, oh wow, he actually can act. But yeah, it's a solid episode. Might be my favorite episode. It really might be my favorite episode. It's certainly, I mean, I'm a sucker for like character development and plot, which is why I really enjoyed last week's episode, which all the character development and the character focus. And this is all, now we're getting to the plot. I'm like, yeah, this is the meat and potatoes of this. But yeah, it's a solid episode, and I definitely enjoyed this. I enjoyed the action, except for the slow motion. I enjoyed the jokes. I'm laughing in this show. I find myself, without even thinking, I'm just bursting a gut laughing. And that's a good sign. If I'm laughing at this, is a show that's done half of its job right. Because comedy still works. Comedy is still incredibly important, despite the fact that it also needs to be well written. Which, while it's still not perfect, it's this getting much, much better than it has been. I can only hope that there was going to be... I can only hope, really, that it continues to get better. And honestly, I was thinking about this earlier. The show has there's so many shows that start out like the first episode's really cool, really great, and you start watching it and you're just like, and the quality starts dipping. And I don't know, maybe if it's just because the pilot set the bar really low for Rush Hour, but I mean, the rest of this looks so much better by comparison, and you can tell they're actually improving. They're not going down, they're going up. Which I just hope they continue going up, but at the very least, though, like, maintain the same quality. At the very least, the minimum. I mean, I think if they don't get too sidetracked, and if they keep focused on this, and they keep working on writing good, Rush Hour can come out as a surprisingly good adaptation of the movie series. I really seriously never thought I would even consider that, because I considered this nothing but a cheap cash-in when I first heard about it. Now I'm considering that it might actually do justice to the movies. That's kind of a shocker. I mean, I would still prefer the movies. I think the trilogy's a lot better than this, but again, like I said before, they're different mediums, and I just really hope that they continue on with this. All right, now that's the end of the review, though. I would like to check out last week's episode, the review for last week's episode 4, and as soon as I get it posted, I'll be posting episode 6 review. I'll post a link in the video. So yes, thank you for watching, and tune in next week for the review for episode 6 of Rush Hour, the TV series.